if only the time was running out, but I suspect it is. The big bad builders once more showing their true colours. Lovely comments there on Paz, but more about that later. This is Cladding Matters, the weekly discussion show where we talk about all things not just to do with cladding, but nowadays more about building safety or lack thereof. And of course, we have today, Hamish McClay of Searching Bay, who helped me set this up in the first place. A constant guest, Steve Day of the buildingsafetyscheme.org, and our special guest today, James Allen, who is a safety risk assessor who knows far too much about these topics. But we'll get to that in a minute. To start us off on today's topic, which I'm going to read you from my notes, PAS 9980. There should be a hissing sound when that comes up. PAS 9980 and tolerated risk. I love that word, tolerated. What risk is enough risk or not enough risk? Hamish, would you take us away?
Well, this particular sort of series of podcasts, which we've been carrying out for over a year now, started off very, very simply. We were looking at a particular situation, which was an explanation of what was going on almost sort of UK-wide relative to the cladding issues. And what we actually had was a situation. Builders who are responsible for the building and inadequacies in the building were fighting to try and minimize the amount of remediation they needed to do. That was agreed by the local council. And that's what started the whole thing off. But this has developed much, much further afield. And it was or always has been a serious issue. It was a serious issue before Grenfell. And Grenfell itself, we thought, would be that fine divide between what was acceptable as being safe prior to sort of Grenfell and what really should be almost written down there, this should be safe. Now, we have to admit, and this is something that James actually sort of mentioned, two of us can look at things and we can see something totally different. I mean, so we can ask somebody, what the heck's this behind me, that you can actually sort of see at the moment, and we would get so many different descriptions. One would hope that the standards are such, though, when we look at safety within buildings, that they are so consistent that the fire risk is minimized, life loss is minimized throughout whatever the remediation is. And unfortunately, this isn't the case with that PAS 9980 suggested standard, because it doesn't actually take out all sorts of risk. And somebody did mention a comment sort of earlier. They said it's impossible to remove all risk. That's 100% true, because 100% of risk cannot be removed. That's why we have insurance. However, one would hope that we have a standard that minimizes as much as possible. And this is something which Steve knows all about in terms of his campaign, but in particular with the expertise that James brings to our discussion today.
Steve, welcome to the show. How much risk is enough risk to be tolerated?
Well, I mean, the problem is post-Grenfell, we have a huge understanding by the insurers of the defect rates in blocks of flats, and it's come out via the developer contracts. We've seen 77% for Taylor Wimpey of life-endangering defects, 35% for Barrett, and a whole mix in between. And
so just to put that into perspective that bears of simple brain like me can understand, that means that 2/3 of the buildings that they're produced are not really fit for human consumption.
Well, according to the developer contracts, are life-endangering defects. And that's the only type of defect that gets logged for those contracts. So you've got that. And then you've also got so much information coming out of the Building Safety Fund fire risk assessments, the developer contract fire assessments. And they're showing things like plastic fixings when they should have been metal in fire breaks, missing fire breaks, holes in party walls, missing ablated bats, all kinds of things. And the worst thing was a beer can in a big partition in a party wall where there should have been a fire. So, putting their fingers up at us, really.
I think they found human detritus in bottles in bars and things like that, didn't they?
Well, you don't need to go to the bar. You just need to go to a party wall at Royal Artillery Quays and get your favourite food. But anyway, You know, the problem.
Yeah.
No, that, you know, we laugh, but actually they were laughing at us when they put that beer can in. They said, we do not have to worry about any repercussions. Well, unfortunately, Grenfell happened, and now the microscope is on our construction industry. And what is PAS? Well, PAS was always seen as a way to bridge the gap. So I worked very hard with Lord Greenhouse on the polluter pays amendments. It was going to try and put joint and several liability on the developer and a lead contractor for breaches of building regs at the time of construction. And we moved the debate away from leaseholder loans for defects to getting the builder to pay. But I was involved in those debates and discussions with the minister and his team. But the problem is the builders tried to argue about the repercussions to their industry and scared the minister at the last minute, I think. And they agreed to sign these contracts on a voluntary basis on two conditions. One, that there wouldn't be liability for anything. So they were buying their ability to hide what type of defect it is. So the 77% could be made up of some defects that are unlawful, but also because regulations have changed, they want to keep that percentage secret. So that's the first thing they want. Second thing they want was, yes, they'll fix all blocks of flats above 11 meters for the last 30 years, but they get to choose what the standard is, and they can work to change that standard even after it's been published and linked to their responsibilities under the contract. So there's no version number on the PAS, which means it can be watered down, as we're seeing currently in the latest. And just to remind the viewers, of what we've been discussing. So the PAS says, it can't be used where the principal objective is a zero risk to life. So what risk to life is acceptable? 2, it says itself in its own text that it's subjective. 3, it says if you can't find a proportionate approach to dealing with a building safety risk, then you can mark it as tolerable and don't do anything about it. 4, basically gives the green light for fire risk assessors who are lent on by the builders to look the other way when they see building risks. And this is the problem that we're facing with the insurers. I met with the ABI, and they say that because it undermines building regulation compliance investigations, so when there's non-compliance found, the PAS standard discourages further investigation. It's actually in the new PAS that that would be a disproportionate reaction to look further into evidence of breaches of building regulations at the time of construction. All of those good things like the plastic fixings, the holes in party walls and so on. So the standard's actively trying to discourage looking at unlawful construction, and very much like the fire safety order, it wants to assume that the building is built to the law. And that is how it starts, and doesn't really want you to look into it if you find evidence that it isn't. Like the fire safety order, like the fire brigade's response to everything, they want to assume that the building was lawfully constructed, and then anything after that can be dealt with. And you could argue, yes, you could take a proportionate approach to remediating if you knew the building was built correctly, but there's so much evidence that it isn't. It's all out there. All the insurers are doing is pricing in the risk, and the government are trying to blame them. We're stuck in an impasse. PAS is not fit for purpose, and something needs to change, and we're working on that. But that's a summary from me. Obviously, I'm involved in this because they want to leave at Royal Artillery Quays highly combustible XPS panels on our single fire escape stair, which the insurers say, well, your insurance isn't going to go down at the end of it if you're leaving XPS on, especially when you don't know what the product is and you've got no fire performance test evidence to know the risk of leaving it on. We need to know what the risk is, and if you can't say it, we'll just mark it up. So we're in an appalling situation. Our service charges have breached $6,700 a year per flat, and that may never improve. And that is why we're so angry, and it's the same across the country. Something needs to happen. But let's hear from Mr. Allen. Thank you.
Well, that was impassioned, Steve. Thank you very much. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I'm not going to prompt you to say, what do you make of all this?
I think it's a case of where do we start with all of this? I think you're right there. Well, just to kind of give you a little bit of quick background to me, my specialist side of the safety risk world is part of the glass industry. Okay, that's what I do. I risk assess commercial and residential properties for the risk of glass in buildings, whether it's the right stuff, whether it's been designed properly, specified and installed properly, and then what happens to glass once it's inside a building, which includes the fire glass side of things as well. And what Stephen's just been talking about in terms of residual risk and from there on in, it's an alarming thing what PAS 9980 is actually leaving people who own the flats, live in the flats, everything else. It's just an absolute. To be honest, I think when you're looking at, say, from my industry, when you're looking at the risk side of things, I come at this from, right, let's see exactly what you have in front of you. Let's leave no stone unturned. Let's look at this in a logical way. Step back, see what you've got, and literally tear it apart, and then look at the risk which other people may not have even thought about. Which I tend to look at it and go, what if? What if this scenario happens? What if that one happens? What if that one happens? And that is one of the parts which actually, when we talk about risk assessors per se in any type of industry, whether it be like Steve was talking about the insurance industry, whether it be part of the health and safety industry, the fire industry, whatever, we're all coming back down to, as Hamish said at the beginning, we're all coming back to the level of knowledge that individual people have at any given moment on any given day. And say, for instance, a particular risk assessor has gone in, may have had the right kind of training, and I'll come back onto the competent side of individuals in a minute. But if you have one, like Hamish said at the beginning, you can have two people who have one person, so might have had a load to drink the night before, and he's still got a little bit of a hangover, and he's going into risk assessor building. Another person hasn't. He's gone in fully there, switched on, doing it, but automatically you know that they're not. They could ultimately come down to the same level of thing at the risk assessing at the end. But the chances are, the probability is that the person who's still got a bit of a fuzzy brain because of the alcohol content is not really going to be focused enough and going to see things in a certain way. So again, that's one of the big things that we do look at as risk assessors in whatever industry. We come down to the competence of that individual. What is a competent individual? And now we have things under the Building Safety Act, and you've got under building regs that you have to be competent to perform a job, role, or task. Whether you're constructing within construction, you're on a building site, construction site, whatever you're doing, you have to be competent. And it's no good now actually just saying you're competent. You now have to physically prove it. And just say you have qualifications, not good enough. You now have to say, yes, I've got qualifications, but this is now how, with those qualifications, my experience and expertise, this is how I've used that knowledge I've got there over all these different types of buildings. I've done this, I've done that. Here's the physical evidence to show you, and all this, that, and the other, that I've then come to that. And under the Building Safety Act, we have the initials SKEB, S-K-E and B, okay, which is skills, knowledge, experience, expertise, and behaviours. And that can get divided into two sections, because you have your hard skills, which are the skills, knowledge, and experience. And then you can have the soft skills, which are all to do with the behavior element. and there's arguments about how can you measure the soft skills of competence, the behaviours, but I would also add into that they should have also gone in with attitude, mindset, ethics, and all of that kind of stuff, looking at the soft skill element to whether or not people have got the right side of SCEB to go in and competence to do the job they've been asked to do.
Well, this blows me away because just using Royal Artillery keys as an example, that methodology you've described doesn't appear to have been followed.
No, from conversations I've had with Stephen before about talking about the things that were on the outside, and funny enough, we were just talking about this, weren't we, in the green room beforehand, is that when I said glass is actually cladding, because it's draped over the outside of a building. And we all talk about cladding as thinking, oh, it's ACM, it's the stuff that was on Grenfell. Right. But in the modern day world of construction and engineering, things like that, glass is a cladding material. But again, we're back to that old idea of knowledge and putting out there into what is it? Where do you go and find competent knowledge? Who do you trust? Where do you go? Who do you believe? And if you've got so many different voices coming at you from different directions, and a lot of them are saying different things, you're going, where do I go with this? Which one do I pick out? Who's right? So that's that. Yeah, sadly, it's just the world we're living in at the moment.
Well, it just appears to me that it seems a no-brainer. There's still blocks of combustible material that will be left there, even if the remediation under PAS 9980 goes ahead on Royal Artillery keys. And on top of that, the glass wouldn't. I mean, this is appealing to your specialist knowledge there, James.
Yeah.
The glass in the stairwells that clad the sides of it are not. It's not the correct glass.
Not fire rated. They're not actually fire rated. It's toughened glass. And interesting, James. During the remediation, which is starting now, it's smashed. They've actually smashed some of it by not intentionally.
But Steve, didn't you state that
everything
the fire
you said happened?
But you said the fire chiefs, or fire safety chiefs, have stated they wouldn't go into that shaft because it's not safe for their crew.
Not ours specifically, but they're saying the fire chiefs have said that they want single escape shafts on high-risk buildings to be made of non-combustible material, and and they have a requirement on the glass as well. They I'll try and get the quote up from them, but they have a requirement on the glass too.
Yeah, but this is actually quite an interesting point though, because there's always, and in my world with glass and stuff, they ban the use of laminated glass on balconies on high-rise buildings over 18 meters. Right, and we're fighting tooth and nail for ever since they came up with this this whole thing to do with and it all comes back to the interlayer between the two, like the PVB sticky interlayer between the two panes of glass, which is the combustible part of a laminated system. And we've always said, look, but they will allow laminated glass on doors and side panes on the facade. They'll allow the laminated glass there, but they won't allow it on the balcony, which is further away from the main part of the facade of the building. And it's bonkers. But we all know that laminated glass, how's the fire and the flame going to actually get to the piece of PVB in between the glass to allow the spread of flame? That's where all this whole debacle about fireglass has come from in the first place. And they've looked at it and gone, oh, the EU came up with this idea of, I think it was organically grown, I can't think of the phrase, but organically something organism. And it came back from the EU back in 1996. That things that were that and the makeup of say the PVB interlayer, that's when the government post Grenfell went, we're not going to make the decision on laminated glass being there to allow the spread of flame. We're going to revert back to an EU decision back in 1996. So we're going to throw laminated glass into the basket with all the other materials that don't meet class A1 or A2, because laminated glass, I think, would only meet a class B at best because of that interlayer.
Let me share this. This is a quote from the National Fire Chiefs Council regarding a barrack development.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it basically says the fire chief said it should be made of a single escape shaft should be made of non-combustible materials, and a strict limitation be placed on the amount of glazing that can be used. And you can see the toughened glazing, which isn't fire rated, lining the entire outside staircase, and it's got.
But we're down to interpretation again.
Yes,
we're
exactly.
And we're down to the interpretation of. All right. Well, we'll define limitation of it. What is the limit? What is the minimum and maximum? Define it, and you're going to get so many people come out with a different interpretation.
Yeah.
And this is the big problem, that when you come to anything in a British standard, in a building reg, or anything which over the years people have gone, well, this is my idea of what that means. That's what that means in that building reg, and what you're required to do. That's how I interpret that. But that's done deliberately. The vagueness over decades within building regs, British standards, and everything ultimately puts the onus back onto the public and all those who have to make decisions based on that information that they're given. The industry doesn't want the responsibility of it. We'll put it onto all the people out there, like the designers, facilities managers, architects, construction industry. They can make all the decisions. It's their responsibility.
I'm afraid I've got to rush because I've got to take.
No, it's fine. Hamish, I was going to ask Hamish. I was going to ask Hamish just to summarise, please.
Well, I mean, one of the great things about having an expert along is the expert can tell you exactly what the situation is. I think the absolute conclusion here, and James just reinforced it, it depends where you come from as to what you're going to say about it. It's in the interests of the local council, sad to say, because they're looking at producing as many properties as they can. And unfortunately, there is a bias within that to focus more on how many properties can be built rather than the safety of the individuals living within those properties. And therefore, when you get these people coming along, it depends. They can be actually, if you like, influenced by so many different aspects: background, training, experience, frame of mind, what their boss has told them, who happens to be, in fact, running the quite an interesting one. They happen to be running the building company, and you are the building control specialist meant to actually sort of come on and assess risk and all the rest of it. What do? You do what the boss says, rather than necessarily looking at the full depth of it. Whereas you get your individual experts, people like sort of James, come and say, well, that is a risk. If that properly actually, if we take Royal Artillery Keys as an example, there's only one escape route. That glass can actually become screeching down. It can do serious damage to any firefighters trying to get in there. But what about the residents trying to escape? And as we well know, the compartments within that building are not going to hold up for that hour and a half or whatever length of time, because how on earth can all of those people be assessed externally? Because the firefighters can't go up the fire shaft to save them. How the heck do they get out of those buildings? Are we not fortunate already? In this country, we have lost 72 lives in one particular incident. There's other lives being lost in various other incidents in this country. We're fortunate not more lives have been. As Gareth said at the start, what risk is considered to be how much? How many lives do we actually consider to be appropriate?
Is it 5? Is it 50? Is it 1? Yeah. What is the limit? I mean, in my naivety, I kind of thought that we were striving for 0.
In a real world, Gareth. I think that's that's exactly what we'd all like to see. Everything taken down to the minimum, well, not minimum, the bottom there, going right. Nobody more. We don't want any more deaths. We don't want any more serious injury. And actually, there's two main points that I want to get in here to do with risk assessing, and what I was taught in my very, very early days that is a big main part of this, and it's missing from and this is where fire engineers, I think, are missing a big trick here. And I think I know why. Because there's two main things, and you have the hierarchy of controls, okay? And it's again like a triangle, like the fire triangle with three main elements. But hierarchy of controls is you have 5 parts to it. One is the very top one is the very most important one, which is elimination. Okay, you eliminate the physical hazard or the risk. Elimination by 100%. Okay, you remove it. Then you have substitution, where you replace the hazard.
Right.
Next one is engineering controls, which is you isolate people from that hazard and risk. And then after that, you have administrative controls. You change the way people are working in and around that hazard and risk. And the next one is, which is not so much to do with this, is you have PPE, personal protective equipment. All right, but that can be not just face masks. You can have other things. But what you do is, as that very top one says, and fire engineers know this about elimination, you eliminate the risk or hazard 100%. You don't go in to manage the risk straight off the bat. You eliminate it. And then you only manage the residual risk with what you've got left, by what you've got left, but you don't go straight off the bat with managing the risk, which is what PAS 9980 is asking to do. They're forgetting, and I think I know why, the elimination of the risk completely.
If I can just throw a spanner in the works and say, in my opinion, the reason why PAS 9980 does that, or appears to do that, is to try and make it easier for house builders to start building stuff, because they don't have to worry so much about dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's.
Yeah, which comes back to we're back to the insurance industry again.
We're
back to that. Let's let the insurance people then say, right, well, this is how much we're allowed for the tolerable risk, but one person's version of tolerable is going to be a different person's idea of tolerable, and the one insurance company is going to be different to that, because it's all based on the information that those people have fed to them. How do they interpret that knowledge? What you got here, what you got there, and there, and it's that. Yes, I agree that there's so many different elements that all have to come together. And you've probably heard about the Swiss cheese model, where all the holes lining up and all of that kind of stuff. It's, in a perfect world, I agree, we have to actually we want to live with no risks or to health, life, and whatever. No more deaths, no nothing. That, sadly, we're never going to get that.
I get that. But the assumption is, if you follow clever talk on PAS 99, they've ignored the fact that they need to try and mitigate risk, and they've gone to risk management, which is kind of like saying people are going to die. We'll just make it look nice on the outside.
Yeah. All right, we've seen that 72 people have died at Grenfell and whatever. Next time, let's try and halve that number. Let's try and do. Oh yeah, we've improved things. We've actually reduced it by 50%. Oh, thank you very much. That's
yes.
That's really, and that's how they'll dress it up.
Well, I don't think it's good enough. Sorry, Hamish.
No, what I was going to say, that is interesting about the comment that we had on LinkedIn about this particular sort of discussion, where it was stated quite clearly, PAS 9980 addresses this proportionally. And it's what proportion you want to take. What proportion of lives, how many can we afford to lose in this building if something actually sort of goes wrong?
Yeah. And there you go, Hamish. You've actually just hit the nail on the head. In health and safety and risk assessing, whatever, you give the client a report of what you found, and a lot of time people will act on what you've told them and go, right, well, we'll go and do this bit first, go and do that bit, whatever. But you will always find people who will file away that report and that's, don't worry, we've got insurance to cover that, or don't worry, we think nothing will happen, so we'll just presume that. And there's that word, we'll presume nothing will happen. Nothing's happened in 20 years, so the next 20 years we won't have any more accidents, we won't have that, so we'll be fine. And there's that, we're back to that soft skill element of life, of attitude, behaviors, mindset and ethics. And this is what we have in our own lives, isn't it? Making decisions. It's just if we can get people to, like I say, with the hierarchy of controls, of elimination of risk, it's there. And fire engineers and all of that have had this same training. You eliminate that risk first. You don't manage it, you eliminate it. And you have the ERIC model as well, which is also elimination, reduce, inform and control. There's that first one, elimination.
Yeah, they've skipped over that. They've skipped over that merrily. Like, we don't need to do anything.
And we know why. We know why, because they've been lent on by so many people.
Follow the money.
Yes.
Hamish, would you care to take us home, please?
That's the way. Wouldn't we all like to follow the money? We knew it is balanced. We know what proportion we speak of is a balanced proportion. And that proportion should be absolutely minimized, not left to this sort of maximum sort of, if you like, sort of level of sort of suggestion by certain people. And we need to get something so that people can't just make their mind up about it. It's like having an opinion about it, really. By my opinion, it's such and such. It doesn't work. We need some consistency there. We need something that insurers can look at and say, yes, we believe that that client's going to be safe, that resident's going to be safe. So therefore, we can place at the size of the insurance cover, the mortgage. You can get a mortgage for it. You can resell the property. At the moment, none of these things can be done effectively because of the alleged experts all differing in their opinions. And apart from one thing, the majority of people, other than the construction guys themselves and the builders, are of the opinion that PAS 9980 in no way assists us in ensuring the safety of the residents.
It appears to be soft soap. It's kind of vaguely dealing with the problem, but leaving the majority of it untouched. And to me, that seems to be a travesty. In a world of opinions which seem to be flowing over, what we need is some hard, absolute, unredoubtable facts, stuff that you can lean on and say this is what we need to base safety on. And Grenfell should have been a marker. It should have been a point of shame. It should have woken and shaken people up and said, this is not good enough. Let's not do this again. And yet here we are, umpteen years later, and they're still arguing about how many angels are dancing on the head of a pin and never actually getting anything truly secured. We should, Hamish, don't you think we should take a leaf out the Australian model? At the very least, they did some action.
Yes, this is the difference. Although they still have a serious issues there.
Yeah.
Again, the big challenge we've got is with those builders, with those constructors. And of course, I think the other element which comes to light through what James is saying, engineers who aren't just qualified because they passed an exam, but they have the experience to sort of back it up.
Quite so. Oh, look, thank you so much, James, for taking time out your busy schedule to be with us. Your expertise is very much required here. And of course, Hamish McClay will help me set this thing up in the first place. And to all you watching, I've seen a few floating in and out. This is all about fire risk safety and safety in general in buildings. It's not just about cladding now. It's more about when you take the cladding off, what's the dirty petticoats underneath. It's all the bits and pieces that you don't normally see until the cladding comes off. Until next week, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and please try and look after that mental health. Until next week, bye-bye.
There's a tip about some folks to the moon, but they would always fail.